The air outside the Illinois ICE facility crackled with fury, chants pounding like war drums against steel fences. Cameras caught a Fox News correspondent shouting over the roar, his voice framing the crowd not as desperate families but as a threat. Then came the moment that lit the spark. One protester, eyes burning with defiance, raised a battered sign reading, "We are not invaders, we are America." The words clashed violently against the broadcast narrative, a single sentence slicing through years of manufactured fear. But what happened next stunned everyone watching. This was no ordinary protest. The Illinois ICE facility had become a flashpoint in a national reckoning, where questions of dignity, belonging, and the very definition of American collided head-on. Families gathered at the gates because loved ones were locked inside, caught in a system that treated paperwork like shackles. Politicians thundered from podiums, pundits fanned flames of fear, and Fox News cameras framed the scene as chaos rather than conscience. For immigrants watching at home, the coverage was more than insulting. It was terrifying. If truth could be so easily twisted on live television, then whose story would survive? But this wasn't only about one facility or one night. It was about whether a nation built by immigrants would honor its promise or betray it. Every chant, every sign, every tear-streaked face outside those gates carried the weight of history. The pressure wasn't just on the protesters. It was on America itself, teetering between compassion and cruelty. Viewers felt the tension grip tighter, sensing that this confrontation was about to ignite into something larger, something unforgettable. For years, the man at the center of this storm, an ICE director turned media darling, had worn the mask of authority. He strode through interviews with the smug confidence of someone convinced his word was law. He spoke of order and security, yet his record told a different story. Botched operations, shattered families, and a trail of lawsuits alleging abuse of power. Behind the podium, he preached discipline and patriotism. Behind closed doors, he dismissed human suffering as collateral damage. His contradictions were glaring. He wrapped himself in the flag while mocking the very immigrants whose labor had built the nation. He claimed to defend law and order while quietly bending rules for political allies. Fox News elevated him as a hardliner hero, a man who tells it like it is. But those who followed the details knew the truth. His bravado was built on fear-mongering, his authority on intimidation. And yet, for too long, the facade held. The public saw the polish, not the rot beneath. His words went unchallenged in echo chambers that cheered cruelty as strength. But that night outside the ICE facility, before a restless nation, the cracks in his polished image were about to shatter. The hero of this story was no stranger to struggle. Raised by immigrant parents who worked double shifts just to keep the lights on, they grew up translating letters, contracts, and school notices, bridging two worlds before most kids could ride a bike. Instead of bitterness, they carried a quiet dignity, choosing service over resentment, stepping into public life not for fame but for community. Every speech, every action reflected the values etched into them by sacrifice, resilience, empathy, unshakable belief in justice. No one realized how prepared they were for this exact moment. The cameras rolled as the confrontation erupted, the villain's voice slicing through the noise with sharpened contempt. He barked about lawbreakers and danger to America, his words heavy with venom designed to rattle, to intimidate. Each phrase dripped with the certainty of someone who had never been challenged on live television. The crowd bristled, their chants faltering as the villain leaned in harder, louder, feeding on the spotlight. But across from him, the hero did not flinch. They stood anchored, posture steady, eyes unwavering. When insult followed insult, they didn't take the bait. Instead, silence became their weapon, measured breaths, the kind that made the audience lean closer, waiting for the inevitable reply. The villain sneered, mistaking calm for weakness, raising his voice until even the host shifted uncomfortably. Viewers at home felt the tension coil tighter, the clash no longer about policy but dignity itself. The hero's restraint created an unbearable suspense, the sense that something seismic was building beneath the surface. And just as the villain's tirade reached its peak, the hero drew in one steady breath, gaze locked on their opponent. The hero's voice cut through the chaos, calm but commanding. "You call them criminals," they began, pausing as the silence pressed in. "But the only crime here is forgetting who built this country." Gasps rippled through the room. They laid out facts like stepping stones, families separated, communities shattered, promises betrayed, each word tightening the noose around the villain's bluster. The once confident hardliner faltered, eyes darting, his rehearsed fury dissolving into stammered denials. Applause thundered, chants swelled, and for the first time, the mask slipped. The hero had landed the blow no one thought possible. The debate clip spread like wildfire, racing across timelines before the stage lights had even cooled. Hashtags erupted, hashtag truth over fear, hashtag we are America, flooding feeds with solidarity. Memes captured the villain's stunned expression, frozen mid-stammer, while the hero's poised delivery became an instant anthem. Celebrities tweeted in awe. Journalists replayed the counterattack on loop, and ordinary people who had long felt invisible suddenly saw themselves reflected in the hero's words. For immigrant families, it was more than entertainment. It was vindication. They clipped the moment, shared it in group chats, played it in classrooms and kitchens. Commentators called it the line of the decade. Even skeptics admitted the villain had been outmatched, his authority punctured not by anger but by undeniable truth. The ripple effect was everywhere. Late-night hosts joked about the meltdown, editorial pages shifted tone, and protests outside ICE facilities swelled with renewed energy. It wasn't just a viral moment, it was a cultural turning point. The nation, weary of spin and spectacle, had witnessed clarity slice through noise. And as the debate played again and again, one thing became certain. When the noise faded, the hero's words lingered, not as a clapback, but as a compass. They reminded the nation that America's greatness has never been measured by who it shuts out, but by who it welcomes in. Justice, they said, is not a privilege to be rationed, but a promise to be honored. Dignity is not granted by government decree, but born with every human being who sets foot on this soil. In that framing, immigrants were no longer cast as outsiders begging for acceptance. They were America itself, the builders, the dreamers, the heartbeat of every town and city. The confrontation had begun as an attack, but it ended as affirmation. To the audience watching at home, it was more than politics. It was permission to stand tall, to see their own family's sacrifices not as shadows, but as the light that keeps the nation alive. Even those who had doubted felt a tug of recognition. This was not about left or right, but about the soul of a country still struggling to decide what it wants to be. The moment had given them an answer. The debate, the confrontation, the viral moments, they all circled back to one truth. Courage, compassion, and dignity define a nation, not fear or cruelty. The hero's words were a reminder that each voice matters, that standing up for what's right can ripple across communities and history itself. If this story moved you, share it. Let others see that resistance, empathy, and pride are not just ideals, they are action. Subscribe to stay part of the conversation, amplify the voices that need to be heard, and join a movement that believes in a stronger, fairer America for everyone.